All set?
Okay, you ready?
Try to look pleasant.
You already look very pleasant, so I can tell you that. Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Sidman, for being with us here today. My name is Katie Delk, and I'm here with
Mosunmola, Ogunmolaji.
and we are here from the Samuel Proctor Oral History Program. Today is February 25th. So why don't you just start by telling us both where you were born, where you grew up, about your families. I know both of you can speak on that.
All right. I was born in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm one of 6 children, the brightest and the best, of course.
And the oldest.
And they started with the best, right, exactly. Went to school in Cleveland, went to college in Cleveland, was a high school teacher of English, married a favorite husband. He doesn't happen to be here today. And, had a very exciting life. And this is it.
Yeah. I also was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but my father worked for a company that transferred him several times, so that I spent my childhood in North Carolina and my teen years in Iowa. And then went back to Cleveland, Ohio, still had met my wife, then graduated from university, went to serve 2 years in the military in Japan and Korea, then came back and taught 1 year in order to take a master's degree at night, which I did, while teaching 6 classes every day.
Oh, wow.
And then took that master's degree, and then was accepted for a PhD, and decided before I went to the University of Wisconsin for the PhD, I would apply for a Fulbright, because I had decided to make my career in German history, and I had never been to Germany before. So I applied for a Fulbright, and while that application was being processed by the federal government in Washington, D.C., I met this lady.
That got me very interested.
She didn't have much time, actually, to initiate the womanly guiles that lead to, I want to go with you, and let's do it together. And I got the Fulbright. We went and spent 14 months in Europe. Came back, went to the University of Wisconsin, took my PhD there, and did an academic career for the first 18 years at the University of Kansas, and for the last 18 years here at the University of Florida.
And the University of Kansas days were very good days. When he got his degree and we got the first job, and the choice was to go to the best opportunity was Lawrence, Kansas. I thought we were going to the end of the world. I said, holy schmoly. People leave Kansas. I don't know anybody that ever goes to Kansas. And I figured, well, we won't be there long. But we were there for 18 wonderful years. And the winters are bad, the summers are bad, but the people are wonderful. And we were just very blessed to be there. When he came here as dean to the University of Florida, a lot of people said, oh, I bet you were happy to leave Kansas. And I always said, yes, in a way, but we were sorry to leave the people of Kansas. They really are the best. They're people that could make a living, were friends. No one else had relatives there. We didn't either. When we were there, we had the option of adopting 5 children, which I also thank Catholic Charities and the University of Kansas for making possible. So we're good years, good memories, but we're happy to be here in Gainesville.
And just for your benefit, we are the oldest in our family, and our 5 children are all the oldest to be born of their mother and father. So we are the only family I know of where all 7 members of the family are firstborn.
Yeah, right, and we're very blessed. Yes.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. Do you think you could talk more about how you met? and just the story of how you met.
I'll have to leave that to this.
I'll get very emotional. I'll have to get my tissue out.
Go ahead. Are you going to tell the story?
No,
or will
I like your version better.
You like my version better.
Okay.
At any rate, I was doing finishing my master. I just finished my master's degree. I had applied for the Fulbright, and I got a telephone call from one of my former high school friends who was doing his PhD in physics, by the way. A good friend, first class individual, and he rang me up, and I said, "Hi, Tom. What's up?" And Tom said, "Well," he said, "I would like to take Katie Woods out on a date." And I said, "She's a nice girl." I knew Katie Woods. I said, "You'll have a good time with her." He said, "No, that's not the issue. The issue is Katie Woods said that we would have an even better time if we double dated." And Katie Woods said, "I can get the girl, you find the fellow." And Tom was asking me, and I said, "No, Tom, I'm not interested. I'm very busy. I'm doing all of the things in preparation for going to Europe because I expect to get the Fulbright." And he said, "Please, for old time's sake." And he persuaded me finally, and so we did go out on a double date, and this was my date. All right.
Volunteer in the crowd.
But the sequel to that story is even better, because 3 days after we had gone out on this double date, I get another telephone call from Tom. And I said, "What's up now, Tom?" He said, "Do you remember that girl that you went out with when we double dated 3 nights ago?" "I do," I said. And he said to me, "Would you mind if I took her out?" He was a proper individual. He said, "Would you mind if I took her out?" I said, "Be my guest." And so I let Tom date this lovely lady.
And he was a gentleman, but he was studying physics. He was very boring. And anything that was exciting, that was fun for the evening, was initiated by me. And after about 4 or 5 days, I thought, this is going nowhere real fast. And I was, 24 years old?
25.
25, teaching school, living at home, being very happy with a grandma that was really worried about me. She thought things were not going well. She said to me one day, "Did it ever occur to you, Margaret Anne, that you might be too particular?" And I said, "No, it never occurred to me at all. I'm just having a good time." So now I've graduated from college and I'm teaching, and I'm the chairman of an alumni dance at Christmas time. This is the following Christmas, that's after our blind date. And I need a date, so I don't know whether he can dance or not, but I'm not going to ask Tom, who's very boring. So I figured I'll take a chance. I'll call Charles. And so I invited him to the dance, and that was the beginning. That was Christmas, and we were married in July.
Oh, wow.
But I'll tell you what the signal was after about the second or third date. When he mentioned that he was going to Germany, I went, "Oh, ding, ding, ding." I was never so charming, I'll tell you what. I was absolutely irresistible. There's no way he could not have married me and been happy for the rest of his life. Amen.
I can attest to the fact that she was never nicer. Beautifully nice. So we went off together. She took French at university, not German. And that was a problem when she went there, because as you will learn if you get to know her better, she loves to talk. And to be frustrated by a language barrier is something else again. But at any rate, we spent the first 14 months in Germany, and during our time at Kansas, those 18 years, we spent at least 8 or 9 years living in Europe. I taught at various universities, and I was in Germany, England, University of London, Ireland. Holland, yeah. So I was teaching in various universities. So we were at Kansas, and then we'd go overseas, and we always took the children with us. And I think there was a great advantage in the long term to them. They never made any problem at all. We never asked them whether they wanted to go. They came with us. And for instance, we were in Europe for more than a year and a half without coming back to the United States. We had 3 children when we went to Europe, and they were ages 3, 2, and 1, all the adopted children. And they went with us, and we put them in the local schools. And if it was Germany, it was the German schools. And we didn't ask them whether they would be uncomfortable. They learned German on the fly. And it's easy when you're that big to learn a foreign language.
You don't care about making mistakes. You shouldn't learn a foreign language as an adult. it's much more difficult. But I caught up with them. I decided if I was going to be married to a German history professor, which I am, that I need to learn the language. So when we were in Kansas, I took a master's degree. I started out with German 1, just the beginning, and being an English teacher, I loved the German grammar. The German grammar is wonderful. There's so many exceptions in English. In German, when there's an exception, they just make it a new rule. I was in my element, and so I started with German 1, German 2. Pretty soon I'm doing German literature, which I didn't really care for, but it was part of the language, and I did get a master's degree. And that meant that when we had a lot of German guests, which we would have, or when we were living in Germany, and I'd be preparing dinner for them, which we did a lot of entertaining. I not only knew what they were eating, but I knew what they were saying. When we first got married, I really felt bad because I'm doing all this, and by the time I would think of something to say, they've already changed the subject. And when you're an adult, you're concerned about not being correct. But it worked out well. I did well.
But after 18 years at the University of Kansas, the opportunity came eventually when I was chairman of the history department at the University of Kansas, 42 members of the department, and I had been for 5 years, and the dean and my colleagues in the department wanted me to renew for another 5 years as chairman. And I had been getting inquiries from universities around the country about whether or not I would be interested in going someplace else. And I decided in that circumstance to say yes to my colleagues at the University of Kansas and the dean there. I would take on another 5 years, but only on the condition that if something came up, you would have to let me go. If I found something I would rather do. And that's what happened. I let my name go into 4 separate universities, and I got a telephone call from a lovely woman in Manhattan who was a headhunter. And she said, would you be willing to come and spend time with me interviewing in Manhattan? Well, it happened that that particular week, she called me on, I think, a Sunday or Saturday, Sunday, and I was going to be at Princeton. I had been invited to be at Princeton for the entire week. And so I said, well, that's easy to arrange. I said, on Friday afternoon, I should be finished at Princeton. I can just take the bus up to New York City, and we can meet Saturday and Sunday, which is what we did. And she was the headhunter for the deanship of the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences at the University of Florida. Now, other universities were also interested at the time, but I came home from that interview on Sunday, and on Monday morning, I got to my office, and I don't think I was in the office 15 minutes, and she called me from New York City again, and said, if she said, if you're available, it would be very nice if you could come to Tampa this coming weekend, and I want to bring the search committee to Tampa to meet you. Would you be willing to do that? So I went to Tampa that weekend. And then when I came back from Tampa, I said to this lovely wife of mine, I said, I think we better talk because, this was very quick and it was moving very fast. And they indicated to me that they would like me to come back at this time to Gainesville for an interview. And so I said, and then I let them know at that time, if they were interested in inviting me to Gainesville, they would have to invite her as well. Because there was no way I was going to make a decision to come to the University of Florida if an offer were to be forthcoming without my wife having seen the city and the university and telling me that she was happy with that move. All right. So, and that's what we did. We came here for the interview there.
Right.
And the final step.
But what did they say in Kansas?
Yeah, go ahead. Tell them.
They didn't want him to leave, of course, and this was bad news, that they know Charles Sidman's being interviewed. We know he's going places, we don't want that. And somebody said at a dinner party, and it was reported to me, don't worry, he won't get the job. He's taking his wife with him. And that tells you something about me, and I love it. I love it. He got the job anyway.
All of our children turned out like this, by the way. They're funny as can be, really funny.
We're blessed with really.
And then the other thing was, when we were leaving here, Bob Bryan was the vice president for academic affairs, and Bob Marston was the president at the time, 1978. And Bob Ryan took us back to the airport when the two of us visited. Go ahead. What did he say?
Oh, and he said, so you'll be hearing from the University of Florida. And I said, if we get the job offer, we'll hear from President Marston. If we don't get it, we'll hear from Bob Ryan. And he said, you got that straight.
So he was right. So then the next weekend, I've been engaged to do a review of Brigham Young University in Provo, Utah. So I flew out. I was going to be the whole week in Utah. I flew out to Utah, and instead of having me visit with faculty and doing my interviewing and evaluation on the campus at Provo, they have a wonderful lodge in the Wasatch Mountains. And they put me up on the lodge for the week, and they brought the faculty members up to the lodge, and it was really beautiful in the mountains there. I could see Robert Redford's lodge as well in the distance as I was doing my work all week long. Came down from like Moses with the tablets. I came down from the mountain at the end of the week to make my report to the president of Brigham Young University, and he said to me offhand, he said, oh, by the way, while you were up at the lodge doing your work for us this week, the president of the University of Florida rang. So I knew.
Ding, ding.
Now you can tell him about the offer.
Right. So he knew. And I'm home, of course, in Lawrence, Kansas.
With 5 children.
With 5 children, doing the carpooling, taking them to school, bringing them back, cooking, doing the usual thing while he's gone. And I'm out bringing the children back from school, and when I get home, there's a note on the door from
Western
Union, which was an old-time thing. That's what the messages get. It was a note on the door, and it said, you have the message. The man was unable to deliver it. Please call this number, and we will come and bring you it. Okay, so when I got home, I called, and he said, oh, yes. He said, Mrs. Sidman, the man will be there shortly, and it's really good news. So talk about privacy. So that's how I found out about it.
Yeah. And so we did accept the offer from the University of Florida. I came here as dean of 2 colleges, actually. They wanted me to merge the College of Arts and Sciences with the University College, which had been in existence at the University of Florida since 1937. 2 separate faculties had evolved as a result. And that was my first major challenge to do that. And
I was the wife of 2 deans.
how about that? Yeah.
You take your pleasure where you can get it.
Yeah. But at any rate, there were, when I left finally and retired from left the deanship, there were between 650 and 700 faculty members on tenure line positions in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences. But it was great fun. It was great fun.
And you were very successful.
And that's what I did. And then eventually, obviously, we got to be older, and the project here was developed, and OKAMOC was going to be built. And my wife, as she has done throughout our long married life, indicated to me that maybe we should be interested. And at first I said, why? And then let it go at that. And then I realized that I had spent my lifetime paying attention to what she said, and I wasn't going to stop now. And so I said, all right, what would you like to do? And we looked into the project that they were building here, and this one was very much interested. And so
and there were friends, we knew people that were coming. We knew everybody that was on the board. I mean, we were very, very tied to the university, and it seemed like a thing to do. We were 74 years old, and I said, this is our gift to our children. Our children all threw up their arms and said, oh, no, Mom and Dad, no, 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 we'll take care of you. They're all very professional, very well-placed people right now. And they said, no, it's too soon. And we said, this is our gift to you. This is our gift to the children. We'd had our parents, we've done our thing, and we know it's not easy. And you do it out of love. And out of love, we're going to OKAMOC. And now when they come to visit, which they come frequently, mostly for food. They say, how old do we have to be before we can come and live with you? So it was a gift, and they realize it. And especially now at time with the pandemic, and they never had to worry about us. If we have illness, we're cared for. They come to visit. It's been a blessing. And they now know that it is.
Yeah, the 5 of them, by the way, just for your information, they really have been jewels in our lives. And I think the experience of going with us those many, many times to Europe has made all the difference in the world. Our eldest, and he has the same name as I do, is at the university. And he has grants, I suppose, well over $6 million. He's PI.
Sea grant.
He's in IFAS, but he has a knack for getting government money. I don't know how he does it, but he's really good at it. And so he's a Charles Sidman also. And oftentimes we got confused. I mean, people would send him emails when they meant to send them to me, and vice versa. All right. So at any rate, he's here at the university. Our second oldest, Katie, has been promoted to, and she's a director at Google. Big time, big time. She could probably buy and sell everybody here at OKAMOC.
I asked her when she got promoted to directorship. I said, so Katie, what are you going to do? Are you going to buy OKAMOC now, or are you going to wait till your parents die and name it in our memory? And she said she's thinking about it.
She's good.
And I have to tell you about Katie on Mother's Day, just an example of the fun we have with our child, blessed we are. We got them as babies, 4 days old, so, and they're not related to each other physically, but they really are in a lot of other ways. So when it's Mother's Day, I know who's calling, and I say, good morning, you've reached the home with the most wonderful mother in the world. And Katie says, oh, I misdialed, and hangs up. Now,
this is from California.
This is from California. You know, that's the way it is, and it's a blessing. So you're on now.
Yeah, and then Peggy, our third, the middle one, and they're all very lively and self-sufficient. She's the deputy chief counsel of Jacksonville, Florida, and Duval County. She manages the 42 hires and manages the 42 lawyers in Jacksonville who are employed by the city and the county, and she drafts all the laws, of course, for the city commission, and she guides the mayor in all his things. She's tough cookie.
She's tough.
And then the fourth one, Eileen, she lives in Denver, and she works for the largest Japanese telephone and telegraph company, Nippon Telephone and Telegraph, and she just was promoted. Huge raise and a very nice.
She has two children. We have 2 grandchildren.
There, yeah. So and she's there. So you see, we
and then Thomas.
And then our last one, Thomas, is we've all had to help with Thomas. He was the hard one, and we love him dearly as much as the others, but he's not had an easy life. And you've got to remember that. No matter each youngster growing up, in the end, has to make a decision as to how they live their lives, and that doesn't make you love them less.
No.
And he's over the worst of it, but he's paying physically now the price that his lack of attention to the way he should have comported himself led. And two of the girls look after him especially.
They stay in touch.
Yeah.
So we've been very blessed.
It sounds like you're still very tight-knit. Like you said, they visit often, even though they're all around the U.S.
Oh, often.
And they asked us one time, not too long ago again, about what they could do for us, because they're very close to one another, but they're very close to us too. And my answer to that question has always been, you can do this for us, and that's all. Be one another's best friends. And I don't ever to hear any one of you speak ill of the other and not help you. I want you to be, one family in everything you do. And they're very close, very close.
And early on, we talked about adoption. It's not an issue at all. It's just a part of life. One time they thought everybody was adopted. you know, because it was so common. And when the phone would ring and it would be, I remember Charles saying, "Oh, wouldn't you know it, another girl." I mean, it was just, you know, it was just a way of life. And I said to them, troops, that's my affectionate name for them, troops, let me tell you, when you are 18, if you have an interest in your biological parents, I will help you. I will help you with the search. But you have to be 18, you have to be old enough, and you have to remember that you're going to be affecting the life of another person. You have to be very sensitive. I said, so until then, that's not an issue, but I want you to know that when you're 18, we could do this. And they said, why would we want to do that? And they'd never mention it again. So you see how blessed we are. Yeah.
Yeah. Just to give you an example, one time when all of the 5 children were at home and they were all still very young, our 4th, Eileen, the one who lives in Denver, was sitting around, we were having dinner one night. And what did Eileen say to you?
Well, that's because we'd had a niece, we had a new baby in the family. Yes, and we talked about when she was born, and Eileen says, "Oh, I know what adopted means, but what does born mean?" So, you know, it's just strange vocabulary.
Yeah, yeah. But they all knew from the time that they had a mind that they could exercise independently what adoption meant, because we told them, and they knew that.
And they said things like, "This would be a big family if only we hadn't adopted Peggy." I mean, it was just a part of life. It was not an issue to be avoided at all. It was fun.
Talks about openly.
Yes.
And let's say, and they all went here to the University of Florida, by the way. And Peggy and Katie, our second and third oldest, asked me, and this wasn't very long ago, because you know how difficult it is to become enrolled at the University of Florida
Nowadays.
with the quality. And they said, "Dad, did you ever influence the decision about whether we would be eligible?" And I said, "I did not." I said, "You should know that." But they wondered after the fact that, you know, how did we ever manage to get enrolled at the University of Florida? But you see, they're hard workers and they're good at what they do. And they learned, you know, how to comport themselves.
And they didn't always do what we wanted them to do. I mean, we had our normal teenage problems. We had 5 teenagers at one time. Those were not my happiest days. I loved them when they were babies. Those were the easy days. I'm good at that. But we had 5 teenagers, and as Katie said to me one day, "Mom, you wanted us to be independent. You always taught us that you would never do anything for us that we could do ourselves," which is true. Anything they could do, we let them do it. And then when we do it, what we want to do and you don't like it, that doesn't make you happy. You can't win, Mom. So, but you live with it, and you roll with it, and you come out okay at the other end.
Yeah. And the end of the story is that when I retired from the University of Florida, and Margie was the executive director of the Ronald McDonald House in Gainesville, by the way. When she retired too, we looked around, and you know, when you're an academic and you've traveled the world and been many different places living, not just visiting.
Not visiting, living.
You know, you don't have one home, you have many. You have friends everywhere, you don't have just family. And we looked at one another and said, but this is the nicest place we could ever expect to be. And so we stayed. And here we are.
That's really nice to hear. I really liked what you said a while ago, that I think your mother said that you were particular. Maybe you were particular,
Yes.
But then you ended up, you know,
That's right.
marrying pretty soon after, you know, a few months in July.
Well, my mother never thought I would marry.
Really?
No.
And no. And
They were shocked,
they were shocked because I
as
was...
they should be.
The 2 things I did when I was growing up, all right? And when I was very young, it was athletics and academics. And when I grew older, it was study and sports. The study became more important. But I love sports. My father loved sports. And I was a right-hander by birth, but my father taught me to play all sports left-handed. And so I played baseball, I played basketball, I played football, but I played them left-handed.
And I'll tell you about my grandmother who lived with us.
Oh, grandmother.
Yes, right. The one who was concerned about me. As I said, I was teaching school, living at home, and I always had boyfriends. I was very popular, and that's part of the reason I wasn't worried. In fact, I'd had 4 serious proposals prior to this one.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I really liked this one was the guys always chased me. You saw what happened on the blind date? What happened to the guy we were out with? He calls me. And so I was always the particular one, and I could say no. And Grandma said to me, honey, I think you're a little maybe you're too particular. So here comes the blind date. Okay, the next morning at breakfast, Grandma says to me, all right, now tell me about the date last night. Because she's praying really hard. She thinks this is a serious deal here. And I said, well, she said, you think he's going to call you? I said, I don't really know, Grandma. I'll tell you, he's not really into dating. I sense that. She said, well, what is he interested in? I said, sports and study. And I said, but he doesn't really have time. He's not really interested in dates. So maybe he will, maybe he won't. I don't know. She said, oh, but he checked all her boxes. He said, number 1, he's educated, which was important. Number 2, he's Catholic, which was also important. And number 3, he's very, very good looking. So she said, you know, I think this could be a winner, she said. I said, well, you pray, we'll wait and see. And then on the 2nd or 3rd date, when I found out that he was going to get a Fulbright, I became very interested and charming.
Just for your information, when I was, just as an aside, I was in Korea for more than a year, and the armistice was called, and then they eventually decided that they could begin relaxing a little bit, the military units around in South Korea. And I was asked, as a result of the formation of a basketball team where I was stationed, whether I would want to play for the team. And it was in Busan. I was in the port city. And I said, I would do that. And so I played, and we, in the end, got invited with 7 other teams to play for the Korean Championship in Incheon. And I went there, and we won the Korean Championship. Our star player, by the way, played for the Harlem Globetrotters.
That helped.
And it helped. But we had a really good team, and this is what I like to do. I love competition, always did. If I was in a classroom, I wanted to be the best I could be in that classroom. If I was playing in sports, I wanted to be the best I could be. And I expected everybody else playing on that team, by the way, to play their best. We might lose, but you play your best. Never give up and play hard.
That's the way you've lived.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does sound like both of you have worked very hard your whole lives in the academic world and outside of it. And you've been married for 64 years, you said?
Yes.
64 long years.
Yeah, we married 6 months after we met, 1957. So it'll be 65 years this July. Yeah, and we are 90, each of us are over 90 years old.
We celebrated our 90th birthdays last year, and the kids gave a great party for us. They said, all we want from you, Mom and Dad, is your guest list. And they said, and we will take care of it. And we went to the
Sweetwater branch, B&B.
They took it over.
We took it. They booked, our son booked every room in there. We had the whole Sweetwater branch for the
22 rooms.
All 22 rooms.
Dinner for 40 people. They did the program.
They did the invitations. They did the program. Our son was the MC. He does that very well.
I mean, you know, are we blessed? Yes, yes.
And they all took their part and said nasty things about their parents.
Oh yeah, it was. I said, oh, they're going to do the roast. This is going to be fun, and it was fun. And as son Charles said, Mom, you know, your guest list was fine, but a lot of them are dead. And I said, when you're 90 years old, you're right. A lot of your friends are dead. That's why you should celebrate your 90th birthday when you're 75, because you're not as tired, and you have more people that are alive. But people don't seem to take up on that.
No, not well. They didn't in our case. Anyway.
No, they didn't. But it was.
Yeah.
People came from all over. It was wonderful.
And the other thing about our lives, which our children, I think, picked up on very, very nicely, they never were out of place in company with the best people. We always tried to associate with good people, and it was fine. I mean, when, you know, we had 3 Spanish ambassadors here one time, with the Spanish ambassador to the United States sleeping in our bed, because he stayed at our house, and we decided, well, we'll give him the master bedroom then while he's there, and the like. And our children could talk to people like that and we always invited people like that, whether we were in Europe or in this country. We invited people of quality who had made a success of their lives, so that our children understood, at what level they could and should conduct themselves. And this is what you do. You find good people. Everything, you're judged by the people, by the company you keep. And we tried to show them that. Good people keep good company. Okay.
I know you mentioned Samuel Proctor in the beginning too.
Yeah. Oh, Samuel. I went to Europe many times with Sam. And
That's right.
And I used to kid him all the time about, whenever he was in town, because he traveled a great deal. And but I enjoyed Sam very, very much.
And what I remember about Sam and Bessie, no matter where they were, you spoke English. I mean, we have a theory that when you go and you live in a foreign country, we make the effort to speak the language of the people, because it's their country. But no matter where you were with Sam and Bessie, it was so obvious. It was just English. It was fun.
And his Jacksonville accent as well. I mean, Sam was Sam no matter where you had him.
No matter where you took him. That's right. There you go.
Yeah, you remember him. I'm sure you knew him well. But we spent a lot of time with him.
We spent a lot of time with them.
Yeah.
And
our daughter, who's a lawyer, of course, in Jacksonville, of course, knew the brother who was a judge there as well. So we knew the family.
Yeah,
Bessie's family was from Atlanta. I don't know whether you know that or not, but his wife's family was from Atlanta.
Yeah, and socially we were together a lot because of the university and close friends.
That's great to hear. And I wanted to ask you too, I know you said obviously you taught English. When you were in Germany and you studied Germany, what was your master's in? Was it in Germany specifically?
It was on your master's degree. Your thesis can be anything. Nobody ever reads it. All you have to do is get it done, right? And I thought it would be easy to do a thesis, because I have young children now at this time, and I thought that would be easy to do. The thesis turned out to be really, really hard. It was about German culture, and it was worth nothing, and it didn't matter, and I didn't really care. I wrote it at 3 o'clock at night.
You realize what was happening. If you had come to our house at the time she was doing the thesis with all of the children, I would be the one with the baby, giving the baby the bottle while she was on the dining room table. Yeah, with her notes spread all over the place as she was trying to write the thesis.
When they alerted me that if I didn't do the degree within the next 6 months, I would have to redo some of the German classes. And there was no way I was going to do that. and for the most part, I went to school in the summer, and that worked out. Because the kids were not in school then, I didn't have to drive carpool and all that good stuff. And one day, I remember going to a seminar, and I was sitting there, and the lady next to me said, and how did you make out with the assignment last night? I said, I didn't do the assignment. She said, oh. I said, I have 5 cases of chicken pox at home. And she never sat next to me again.
Yeah.
But when I came to Gainesville, I took a volunteer job at Ronald McDonald House, worked my way up. I was the executive director when I left there after 10 years. And that was a wonderful, satisfying position.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And we still do interesting things here. We're still very involved.
If you ask us, though, we did travel a lot after retirement, but visiting places was not what we did. We lived different places. We enjoy very much decamping to another place, unpacking and staying there for a length of time, so that you get to know the culture. And we always lived in the culture, speaking the language and doing everything that the locals did.
That we could.
Yeah, and so it's all right. So whether it's University of Munich, University of Bonn, Utrecht, University in Holland, the University of London in England, in Dublin, University College Dublin.
Ireland.
Yeah, living in a fishing village in Ireland. That's right. But just one little interesting fact, how you get to meet people and do interesting things. One time I was teaching at University College Dublin, largest university in Ireland. All right, and she's Irish, by the way. That's why we're in Ireland then. So I'm teaching there. And we were coming back on a Sunday evening from visiting friends in a fishing village that was north of Dublin. And as we're coming through the city of Dublin, we had a Mercedes, and it was a very temperamental automobile. And it died on Lower Leeson Street as we were traveling through Dublin. I mean, it did that periodically, and I couldn't get it started again. We have 5 children in the car.
And it's time of the troubles.
So I looked at it, and it was about, 9 o'clock, at 8 or 9 o'clock at night maybe. It was dark already in Ireland in the wintertime. It gets dark early. And so I looked at my wife and I said, well, Margie, what shall we do? And so she said, all right, go ahead.
So, and this was the time of the troubles too. This was not a time when you wanted to be out at night in Ireland. And so I took 2 of the children with me and I walked down the street and I said, okay, God, you put us here. Now what are you going to do with us? Here we go. And I walked down and there was a bicycle, a tricycle on the lawn in one of the houses. And I thought, that's good news. There's a family here. There's a child. So I rang the doorbell. And a very well-dressed lady came to the door. And the first thing you do is you open your mouth so that they know that you're American. Then that makes it okay for you to be there. You're not a stranger, or you're not a threat. And so I said, I'm very sorry to bother you. I said, I had no idea what I was going to do. I had no idea what she was going to tell me. I had no clue. And I just said, we have car trouble. And she said, oh, come in. And she said, my husband can help you. And as I looked into the dining room, there was a table set and there were children well-dressed. And her husband got up and he came and he said, how can I help you? And I said, well, we're visiting here. My husband's at the university and we're on our way back, And he said, oh. He said, well, you stay here. He said, I'll go out and see what I can do. So anyway, he came back in and he said, no, we can't get it started. He said, I'll take you and the children home. He said, and I'll come back. I mean, that was it was wonderful. They took us home, and by the time they got back.
And by the time they got back, I had the car started again. So I thought, well, it would, they were so kind to us that we wanted to do something. So we assembled a group of people.
Yeah, but the people that we had visited called us the next day and said, how did you get home? Were you okay? And we told the story. And they said, oh, that was not good. And we told them who it was. And she said, you couldn't have rung a better doorbell.
He was the leading physician, surgeon in Ireland, and she was mayor.
She was the mayor of Dublin.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that now?
The door you knocked on, huh?
Yeah, can you believe that? That's what happens if you do some things like that. And so we had a big dinner party for them then. We invited all of the people we knew that they would find very attractive company to keep one evening. We had a great dinner party with them. And when Dublin celebrated its 1,000th anniversary as a city, she sent me a gold invitation to the celebration. But this is what happens if you associate with good people, or just do things. Take the initiative and do something.
Or if you have a very wonderful wife that handles things well, I think that's
1 out of 2 isn't bad, Mike.
So I was going to ask, how did you get involved with the OKAMOC? How did you hear about it?
Well, we were notified
that they were going to build it. The man who made contact with the president of the University of Florida about the possibility of this kind of a CCRC being established with a connection to the University of Florida was a faculty member in the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences and a good friend, Gordon Stribe. And Gordon was a full professor of sociology. We had brought him down from Cornell, where he was a full professor at Cornell in Ithaca, New York. And Gordon was doing a review for a company that built CCRCs. And they asked him whether he could introduce them to the president of the university so that they might make a proposal about the building of something like this. And that's how, and so we were in at the very beginning because of the connection with Gordon Stribe and, from the outset. So, but then when the decision was made, Marks?
What?
It was you notified me that.
Oh, well, yes. And of course, they were sending literature because they thought originally that this would be a retirement home for University of Florida people, and it would bring money to the university. That isn't the way it's worked out.
Yeah.
It hasn't worked out that way at all. But we were finding out more about it. We knew everybody who was on the board. Our friends were coming, and I said to them, I think this is a decision we need to make. And we sold our house.
In 1 hour.
Yeah, well, I'm good. I'm good at that.
She sells houses and cars like you can't believe.
Well, when you have a little personality, it's easy. Yes.
No, it's true. She is good at it. She is good.
Yeah, so we sold the house and we moved from the Millhopper area to OKAMOC, and we were one of the early ones here. When we first came, building 2, well, number 1, we picked our apartment just from a piece of paper. There was no building. That's how early we were in on it. And building 1 was built, building 2 hadn't been built. We were in building 1. And they started filling the first floor, and then the next week they do the second floor, and we were on the 4th floor. So we got in April of 2004, right? And but the apartments weren't all full. In fact, it was like a mausoleum. You kind of rattled around when you got in an elevator. You never saw another person. It was a strange time because the people were coming. It was a new thing, and there was a lot of uncertainty. But when you came early like that, you got to do the things you wanted to do. A lot of the things that the people are moving in now are taking for granted, are not becoming involved in. It's because we've already done it. It's already been there. All those pictures on the walls were all bare. They were all white. Looked like an asylum. And in a way it was. And when you move in, you don't have enough wall space. What do you do with all the pictures? What do you do with 4,000 books, which is what we had to get rid of? So you form a committee and you decide, well, let's put the pictures, all these extra pictures that people are donating, let's put them up on the wall. And you see now how friendly it looks and how nice it looked. These are all pictures that somebody brought from someplace else and didn't have any place to put. And then these books that we have, we've got 4 libraries here, and we give all the library books we can to the friends of the library. We provide them with schools. Of course, now books are no longer the big value that they once were. So when we came, what you wanted to do, what you thought was a good idea, you thought it was a good idea to start a choir. Do you like to sing? Well, why don't we do, and on Sunday, so now you've got a choir. And nowadays, these things are all done, and I'm a little bit concerned that people moving in need to come in and start pulling their share of the wagon.
But we all of the committees were our committees, and like the Christmas tree went up downstairs at Christmas time because the residents, formed a committee, and every year they did all the work. The staff does not do the work on many of the projects that go on here.
And like the pictorial directory, I was one of the founders of that. This big book we have with the pictures, which I think we probably just published our last one. I think it's going to go digital, and they're going to have a big problem with that, but I'm not involved, so it's okay. I also initiated the Bosom Buddies. There are 37 women here that are survivors of breast cancer, including me. And I just thought the new people moving in, they're all from someplace else. They might need to know somebody else. And we have a party, and you would never know that it was breast cancer people. It was a good party, and it's fun.
When Margie had her, she had breast cancer, and then she had a second case of breast cancer. And I remember ringing my friends in Washington, D.C., asking them whether, they thought it would be best if we would send her to the Anderson Cancer Center in Houston, okay, which is the leading cancer center in the United States. And the woman I was talking to in Washington said, why would you do that? You've got someone at the University of Florida in the medical school who is as good as anybody there. Million.
Dr. Million.
Million. And they were having a meeting then, and the group of physicians said at that meeting, we were told later on, that she had a 6% chance of survival. This is 35 years ago.
And 35 years ago, breast cancer was
and they didn't want to put her through it again, except that Millian said, no, he said, I think I can save her.
cobalt. Cobalt was so new, and that's why I don't have the use of this hand. The radiation took the nerves out. But hey, this one works.
Yeah.
And I'm here.
You're here.
Yeah. And I also did a Catholic Bible study. I mean, you know, you just see where there's a need, and you just go ahead and do it. Oh, and also I'm one of the founders of the Employees Scholarship Fund. And I named the scholarship fund. It's called Oh I Can. And Oh I Can means...
You know what that fund does? That scholarship fund for employees here who are working as staff members at the at OKAMOC.
Restaurants and-
If they qualify, they've been here 6 months, they're working 20 hours a week, they can apply, and residents here have donated huge sums of money so that they can have no charges.
We pay their full.
Residents pay their full fare. Okay.
And we've got somebody that's graduating. Well, we've had several. We've supported 28 people so far, and they don't have to come back here to work or stay to work. It's the idea is this is the way to get up is to educate, and this is what we're telling them. And we pay full tuition. Now, if they go to Santa Fe, it's a bargain for us. And
But they go to the University of Florida and major in engineering, it is not so much.
We've got one now that's graduating, that's in his 4th year in
Electrical
electrical engineering, and every time he applies, it's $4,000 to $5,000. But why wouldn't you work at OKAMOC for 20 hours and get your tuition paid and be supportive? And everybody's cheering for him. I mean, everybody is, and we're supportive. They have to give a new application for every semester that they want money. We've got people that want to be an LPN. You don't have to be going for a PhD. That's not the way out for everybody. In fact, it's not the way out for a lot of people. I mean, you need to have a skill. You can be an LPN, and then sometimes when they get their LPN certificate, doesn't even have to be a degree, a certificate, they'll go on and they'll go to Santa Fe and work for their RN and become a nurse. I mean, it's just an initiative and the ability and the opportunity, and we offer it. And I think it's made a big difference in staff that we've had, although right now, as you know, staffing is a problem. I think retention of people, because when they come, why wouldn't you stay? If you're happy. If you're not happy, you shouldn't stay in any case. But I think it's, and I'm one of the initiators of that, and we've called it Oh I Can. They were going to call it the Employees I said, no, it has to be a fun name, because we have to involve the students. The students have to be the promoters of this. All we do is give money and say thank you. That's what we do. And they show by what they do, and we have a report card which we give out every semester, which has their pictures and says what they've done, what their degree is, or what their certificate is, what their GPA is. They have to maintain it. I mean, I think when you have a committee meeting, usually committee meetings are so boring. I think they're a waste of time, but not of the Employee Scholarship Fund. It's the Oh I Can, it's the OKAMOC Inter-Community Advancement Network. And we have armbands with scholarship on it. I mean, it's a winning program. So if you want to do something here, you take the initiative. The bad news is we've got a lot of people here that have known how to run things for years, and they still think they can run everything. And they may not be running the way
These are
we
the
want to
residents.
go. Yes, the residents. But a lot of people are supportive of education, And as we said to them, if it hadn't been for education, we would not be here. You're not able to be here. Education is your way up. And you see somebody down there that's got personalities, friendly with the people. And I said to him one day, I said, is this what you want to be when you're 40 years old? You want to be sitting behind this desk? Well, no. I said, get off your tuition. Let's apply.
But we try to do with, these programs and our own, the way we conducted our lives and with our own children, aim high. We all fail at certain things in the course of a lifetime. And the longer you live, the more aware you are of the human frailties and the fact that, you're not always going to be successful. It's not that you don't fail, it's that you stop trying. It makes life difficult and unrewarding. So aim high. Try to be your best self. That's what you teach people to do. And
a lot of these other kids, a lot of them are in dining. There are waiters, although some are also downstairs. They're in different jobs here. They're called weekend warriors. That's the name we gave them, because they would come and they'll do their 20 hours on Saturday and Sundays, and that's because they're going to school during the week.
full time.
Full time. Mm-hmm. And so when you see them, they'll say, "I'll be here all day Saturday." I said, "I know why. You're putting in your hours."
Yeah.
That's a very satisfying committee.
And the one thing we didn't tell you that after retirement, because we had downsized our home and we didn't have as large a home anymore, and our children are now adults. We took our children, their spouses, and our grandchildren on 8 or 9, was it 9?
9 cruises.
9 cruises.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's our every year we used to
That's
do.
our togetherness.
That was our togetherness, and right one next to the other
In a cabin.
in cabins.
Take down the barriers out on the deck.
Verandas, yeah.
You sit out there in the morning, everybody has coffee and your jammies, and 7 days. I planned the 9 cruises. We never had one cruise that anybody failed to show. Everybody came. Always. And it was wonderful. And we used to have the reunions. They would come home when we had a bigger house. And the first year we were here, they all came here. And I said, once they left, this ain't happening. No, this is not it. Because even Katie said, "Mom, we didn't get to talk with you and Dad." I said, "You didn't come into the kitchen." Mm-hmm. All I did was answer the phone, hand out the car keys, because they went to school in Gainesville. So they have friends here. They came to see their friends. Did they come to see their parents and each other? No. And so when they left, I said to favorite husband, I said, some days more favorite than others. I said to favorite husband, this is not happening again. This is not a family reunion. He said, "What do you want to do?" I said, "We're going to plan a cruise. And we're going to do a 7-day cruise out of, Fort Lauderdale or Miami." And we did our favorite cruise
To Alaska.
was Alaska.
We took them to Alaska one time.
And you have, everybody's got their own cabin, what they eat. When they were home that first time, well, what do you feel like? I like Chinese. Well, I'm going to go for pizza. And there was nothing togetherness about it. I said, "No, this isn't working. Where you go on a cruise, you can do whatever you want to do these excursions, be our guest, and if you want to, show up for dinner. You show up for dinner, 2 things. You have to be well dressed, and number 2, you have to be on time." And they were never late.
And never missed anything.
And never missed a meal.
No.
And then, of course, we could go to bed, and then they stayed up and partied, and we don't care. So a cruise is a wonderful family reunion, and it was enough stuff for kids to do, for the grandchildren. We didn't have to worry about them. We didn't have to worry about who had the car, what time they got home. We didn't really care. So the cruises we were fortunate, we were blessed that we could do it. It's $1 million in memories. We call it spending your inheritance. That's what we call it. I said, "We're spending your inheritance. We're taking on a cruise." Do you have any questions that you'd like to know?
Yeah, I was going to mention that the scholarship initiative is actually a great one. And then my next question would be, like, what are the major changes that you've seen happen at the OKAMOC since you moved in 2004?
Well, the people that are moving in, well, number one, we're getting older, and those of us who used to do a lot of things are now no longer as able, and they shouldn't be as able as doing it. The new people moving in are a little less, maybe a lot more reluctant to volunteer. They're coming for a different reason. Those that are coming at a good age are coming to be like on a cruise. Okay. The other group that's coming is a group that's coming, and they're coming too late. And I feel sorry for that group, because we often show our apartment. And when they come in and they're on a walker, and he says to her, "Oh, well, this is all right, but it's kind of small." And she says, "Well, we'd have to sell our house that we've been in for 50 years, and they're in their 80s." And well, that's really going to be hard. You know, I say to myself, they're coming too late. I said, it's too bad you didn't come when you could really have a good time and enjoy yourself. And you think it's going to be hard to sell a house now, just wait till you're 90. It'll be a lot more fun. I mean, I don't give many sympathy. And we have, I think now, a number of people that have moved in, waited too long. They eventually are downstairs, which is okay. But
The average age when we moved into OKAMOC for those first few years of all of the residents in aggregate in OKAMOC was about 74. Mm-hmm. The average age now of the residents is about 84. Mm-hmm. And it makes a difference.
And the people that came in at 74 are now in their 90s. So it's an altogether older group. You saw probably the pictures of the 90-year-olds that are on display in the halls.
And there are more than 120 of the residents now who are 90 years of age or older.
Yes, yeah.
Out of the 500 that are here. So that's, you're talking about just about 22 to 25%. That's a large percentage of people who are already at least 90 years old.
And threatened by old age. And what happens when you get to be 90? You fall. That's one thing you don't want to do. That's what takes you out. You fall.
So what do you think is the major reason why there is this gap between the average age? You mentioned that when you moved in 2004, it was around 74, now it's 84. What do you think there's any reason that can be associated with this?
Well, I don't know. We were new then, and everybody else was new then. This place is, I guess it's grown old as an institution, and the number of people moving a greater number of people are moving, but more older people have come to see value in CCRCs. So I think that accounts somewhat for the age discrepancy.
When you walk in, it looks like a much older group.
When we first moved here to OKAMOC in 2004, there was not a single walker, let alone wheelchair. None.
None.
And now,
Now it's like a parking lot at dinner time. Yeah. And everybody's on a walker, even people who don't need it, and that's another one of my problems. People, because, we can get it, and Medicare and all. No. When you stop walking, you're asking to have trouble. And at dinner time, it is a parking lot with walkers.
So I think more older people have moved in because these establishments are better known nationally than they were when we first moved here. We were in early on, I think, and the CCRCs have become much more established and much better known.
Right. And you also mentioned that at the time, you thought there would be mostly people from the University of Florida, but now the people moving in are from elsewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. That was the case from the very beginning, actually. Okay. It was a surprise to us as well. Okay. But when the president of the University of Florida authorized collaboration that has worked so well, that was his thought, that it will provide a vehicle for retired faculty members to maintain contact with the university and become long-term donors. Okay. Yeah.
And when did this original plan change? When did it become open to other people?
Oh, it was from the first. It was always open.
Always open.
That was never a question there. It was just assumed that University of Florida employees, faculty, and other employees would be the principal beneficiaries of this establishment.
And I think it's wonderful that it's not. My concern when we were moving here, because we were so involved with the university, as you know, I thought to myself, if this is just more Gator stuff, I'm really, that's not really how I want to spend my retirement. And it's turned out that it's not Gator stuff. There's definitely an involvement, and that's very good. But people who have moved here this is often their second move to Florida. That's what we find. They've moved, they were someplace else for a couple years, and then they realize that they need more, or they're thinking about the future, and they move here. And they're interesting people. They've done wonderful things. And it's made, I think, OKAMOC a much more interesting place and much more fun. We really have a lot of good friends that, not necessarily Florida University people, but people that have done other things. And it's amazing what you find out, where they went to school, you knew somebody, or there's connections.
Just one little example again. I live on examples.
Stories.
I met a man who was from Iowa, Frank Covington. He's dead now.
Gone to God.
Our age, exactly our age, when we were here early on. And got to know him. He was from Iowa. Oh, I said, Frank, where in Iowa did you live? And he said, he gave me the name of the town, Leon, Iowa. And I said, well, I lived in Des Moines, and I went to Dowling High School in Des Moines, and we played Leon in football. And so I played football too. He said, I remember playing Dowling High School. You used to beat us in a good year for us, 40-0. And I went back home, and I had kept my high school newspapers. And I picked up the newspaper from 1946. And I went to Frank and I said, look at the headlines on the sports page of my school paper from 1946. Dowling beats Leon, 40-0.
Yay!
And it had, of course, the list of the football team, you know. And Frank had a great time going down that list. Oh, he was a good friend of mine. And, you know, and so, you know, but this is what you find. There are so many more connections that you have no idea. And when we used to go out to dinner with Frank and his wife,
Yeah.
if you put us in separate rooms and asked us to order our dinners, we would order the same food from whatever that restaurant happened to be, because we had developed a taste for foods that the Iowans will eat. Corn, for one. I mean, if corn is on the menu, I'm going to order it. I love corn. You've never seen those cornfields, those that are above your head. You did see that baseball film, didn't you, about, yeah, okay, and about how he took down that cornfield in order to build a baseball diamond?
And they'll come.
Yeah, build it and they'll come. Well, there is nothing like that black soil in Iowa for really rich production. And corn grows there wonderfully well, and it's the best corn you'll ever taste.
What else do these people want to know?
Whatever.
Yeah, I was going to ask, what do you think is unique about the OKAMOC compared to other retirement communities?
The OKAMOC.
Compared to other retirement communities.
Well, we've never been it. We didn't apply to another one. We know somebody here that applied to 50th, that visited 50th and wrote a book and ended up here. And we know a lot of people that have put down money in 3 or 4 different places, and sometimes the place didn't make it, which has happened, or sometimes they went back and didn't like it as well and took their money down. So a lot of people have looked around and have ended up here with very good reason. We didn't look anyplace else, so we don't really have any experience, but I would say from the people that have looked other places, they've told us, number one, make sure there's a washer and dryer in your apartment. I mean, this is really essential stuff. Number 2, they said, when you go there and you have dinner, listen in the dining room, see if there's any talk. They said they were places where it was like a mausoleum, where nobody talked, And when they got up from the dinner, nobody stopped at another table to say, how are you? And here, it's so noisy that it's a problem. It is. Everybody talks, everybody shared. And that were two things that I remember they told us to look for, not that we were looking, but that the dining area, whether people were friendly and whether or not they talked. So I think the association with the University of Florida is a very important distinction. And we try hard to maintain that, to keep that going.
Do you get involved with the Institute for Learning in Retirement? Do you take any courses?
Originally,
Yes, I chaired that committee originally because I had a lot of faculty members that I knew, and they owed me. So I would never have anybody tell me he or she wouldn't come here to give a talk if I asked them. So I did that, and then at one point in time, after a few years doing this, they asked me to give talks. And I said, I'll give talks, but I won't chair the committee anymore if I do. So I have given probably 55 or more.
and he's the outstanding lecturer. Let me tell you, he's going to be modest about this. He's a wonderful lecturer without notes on a subject that he's only read about, that he's taught himself, not just German history. I mean, all kinds of, and the place, there will be standing room only. They'll be bringing in chairs from the ice cream parlor. They say if you want to have a crowd, you can do one of two things. You can have food. Food brings people. And number two, you can have Charles Sidman give the lecture. So he's modest about it, but he is the outstanding lecturer. And
But I have
he's now in the quiet zone. He's now reading 5 different books. I say that because I can do one, but sometimes I have to go back and reread it.
Margie reads for pleasure. I read to remember. We have and I do like to read different books at the same time.
And not fiction.
And not fiction.
No, I do jigsaw puzzles. I do mahjong, play mahjong, which I learned. I think you should learn something new when you're here.
Vicky, she's making.
And people give me a hard time because I'm very insulting, and I love it. When they see me, they say, "Oh, here comes trouble," and I say, "Guess where I learned it?" So what else would you like to know? I hope we've been.
Do you have any questions?
I know you answered a lot of questions. Thank you so much for talking.
We find that difficult.
I guess you've talked a lot about just living here, but what have you enjoyed most about living in OKAMOC, and what is your favorite thing about this community?
I think the social life has been very, very good for my wife. She enjoys people. She loves to have lots of different friends, and she wants to be busy all the time. I have more of a scholarly demeanor. I don't mind at all, closing the door and living in my cave and doing, my scholarly work, because that's what I did. What took me away from it was academic administration, and sometimes I think back and say to myself, let's get back to some of the work, the stuff that got you involved in academic life in the first place. Go back and do some of that again. So I can live a solitary life. This one cannot.
And when people see me out a lot, and I'm on different committees and things, and I have ideas. That's the bad news. And they say to me, "How's your favorite husband?" Because that's what they always call him, favorite husband. Because that's what I call him. And how's your favorite husband? We haven't seen him in a long time. And I said, he's loving this pandemic. This social distancing is his kind of living. He thinks this is the best thing that ever happened to OKAMOC. I mean, and we're restricted with the dining room. And now, one of my favorite things is having the availability of food. I do some cooking. But, when you've been married for 64 years and you've had children and you've cooked a lot, and it's not my specialty, and I really don't mind not having to do it. That's one of the things. And I also like it socially. And as they say, "Oh, we haven't seen Charles for a while." I said, "That's because you haven't rung the doorbell and come to the apartment. He's home. Feel free."
That's sweet.
Okay.
And then I guess another question would be, what would be your advice to younger people about retirement?
Plan.
Plan for it. Think about it beforehand. What you enjoy doing most, what you'd like to do with the late years of your life, and be ready for it when it comes, because it goes very quickly. So if you don't plan for it, it's going to be over before you even have a chance to do some of the things you thought you would like best to do when you got older and when you had, the opportunity.
Yeah, and do the things you can do now when you can do it, because sometimes some of those things you think you could do, you're not able to do for many reasons. If you want to travel, you want to go places, and you're going to say, well, financially, maybe I'll wait, and I'll say, go while you've got your health, because when your health fails, it really, it's a big knock. And do what you can do, and we're so glad we traveled, and we never had any money, we never saved any money, we were always careful.
Our money did not go into home or
No.
clothes
Or furniture. Cars, cars.
or automobiles.
Famous for cars.
Our money went into entertainment and travel.
Yeah, we never had a new car. At one time, we had 3 cars. And
All of them used.
All of them used. And
One
all
of them probably was running at the time.
And I kept a license plate in my purse. And when I would go out in the morning, because it would be my turn to take the kids to school, because we went to private Catholic schools, I'd put the key and try the key, and whatever car started, I put the license plate on that car. I mean, and one time we were at a faculty dinner party, and they were talking about what your idea of being rich was, which is an interesting conversation. And I remember one man said his idea of being rich was to write a check and not have to worry what the date was. I said my idea of being rich was to go out into the garage, put a key in the car, and know it would start. And they said, whoa. And we lived next door to a man who owned the gas stations in Lawrence. And he said, except for people like us, he wouldn't have any business. I mean, it was so convenient.
Yeah.
So it depends, and save your money for what you want, And I think a lot of people now are spending more money than they have. Do what you want to do. Do it when you can do it.
Yeah.
We've been blessed. And count your blessings. Life is not perfect. As my mother would say, if life was perfect, what would heaven be for? That's good advice. People say to me, oh, tell me about OKAMOC. I said, it's not perfect, but it's very good. It's called life. And it's what you make it. And we have some people here that are not happy. They weren't happy when they came. They're not going to be happy when they leave. They're just not happy people. Nothing we can do about it.
And that was, by the same is true in every occupation, anywhere in lifetime, at any age, with any age group. I had faculty members like that. There were a few, not many, but a few who were unhappy, and they just couldn't be happy. And I had them come to me in the office, because you spend a lot of time counseling faculty members, and just telling me that they were so sorry that they couldn't be nicer, but that was just in their system. And academics are critics. You're taught to be critical if you're in academic life, and it's hard to separate being critical academically from being critical in the way that you treat other people daily. It's very hard sometimes to do that. And
you count your blessings. I say that almost every day to somebody. Count your blessings, especially when like when we had new carpet and they're complaining about the new carpet. I mean, complain about the carpet. Get a program. And when they talk about something like this and about how we have to wear our masks, I said, aren't we glad we're not in Afghanistan? You just think how blessed we are to be where we are and what we're doing, and move on. There are other places, and when the weather is bad, look how wonderful the weather is. You just look for the good stuff. And life is not perfect. That's why it's called life. And as I said, my mother would say, if all things were perfect, what would heaven be for? It's good advice. Remember it. And thank you for interviewing us, right?
yeah,
Should we say that?
yeah.
All right.
And that should be the end.
Yeah. So
Well, thank you for your time. We don't have any more questions, and we enjoyed listening to you speak today.
Well,
Well, you really had to pull it out of us. Yeah, that's
no,
right.
you don't have to pull anything out of this one. She talks.
No, I'm blessed.
She was born talking. Some people come out of the womb, you know, talking, and she did.
Yeah, but we come out of different cookie jars entirely.
We-
And people often say,
Our culture, by the way, our
So
cultures are
different.
very different. I'm not even close to being Irish.
no. Well, we pray for people like that, those who want to be Irish. And people often say to us, how did you two ever get together? People who know us here, because they know how different we are. And we said, well, it was all a mistake. My grandma prayed.
Yeah.
Oh, we still have our mics on.
yeah, thank you very
But
much.
at any rate,
Thank
thank you so much.
Thank you,
for
thank
coming.
you for coming. I don't know what you'll do with it, but we'll.